Hi, welcome to the studio. I'm Lindy Witten, and today I'm just going to talk a little bit about horizon lines, and then we'll do a little painting. I just spent a day at the weekend down on Bruny Island, which is a beautiful island here in the south of Tasmania, and it started off as a really overcast, silvery sort of day and then moved into beautiful sunshine in the afternoon. So I took a whole series of photos, and I just want to talk through my process of deciding what I'm going to paint. So in my setup here, I have my little tablet just hung over a board next to my painting area. I've got a sketchbook here, and I've just been looking at some of my photos. So I'll just sort of flick through the photos as I'm going to decide what I think is great. I took a lot of photos, and then I came home, I went through them, and the way I decide on what I want to keep for a reference later on is I just look, as I'm flicking through, if one grabs my attention, I put it in another folder, and then I'll go back later to that folder and sort through those. So for this one, I've sorted it down to a number of different paintings, reference photos that I might like today. Let's take this off the hook and we'll see if I can show you the ones I'm interested in. Really liked that one. I think it's I like the silver and the strong contrast here at the foreground, so that might be one I play with. For one entirely different, in the sunshine, I just like zooming in, no horizon line, looking at the intimacy of a wave breaking on the shore. You can get some very good effects. This is another one. I've cropped that one down into a square form because today I'm using a square, and the clouds in that are just fantastic. That leading edge coming in and the reflections down here and the reflections of the cloud making it dark on the sand. Really like that one. And that was the original for that, but I liked it cropped into a square. I enjoy painting with square formats. Another one I really liked was this one. Just again, it's a silvery day. My husband just was hanging out for the sunshine, but I was really enjoying the light effects there and that lovely little bit of warmth in the sky there. So they're all possibilities. Make some little sketches of those possibilities. So here I've been playing with horizon lines. I've got one here where I can see a sliver of the sea and the horizon line is quite high. I've got another one here where that's that wave I was talking about, and there's no horizon line. It makes it a very intimate sort of almost abstract painting. Here I've got a very low horizon line. That's that lovely silvery sea and sky with a little bit of peach in, quite like that. And then there's another one over here, and that's the one with the fantastic cloud formation. So then I just have to decide what I feel like doing today. I've already got my piece of paper ready. It's a colour fixed sanded paper on a piece of foam core just standing up against a masonite board. I've got everything handy. I've got whole sets of pastels here. I've got a seascape set and my mixed set and some greys and lights over there. I've also got set up here ready to go my rice palette. That's just where I put the pastels as I'm using them to keep them clean, and some paper toweling to wipe the pastels off before I put them back into their places again. I'm actually going to start today with this very sunny beach scene with the river flowing out into it. I've done a few demonstrations lately that have been a bit grayer, so I'm thinking we'll go for something bright today. I'll put it in black because it's easier for you to see. So I'll just pop that in black. And I'm just going to wash in some of those major shapes and colours now. I'll put in the water. Go, water there, and a bit darker as it goes back towards the distant shore. Some blues for the sky. On the tops of the clouds there. Pick it up a bit more with the and then some darker colours here for the shrubbery that's going to go in here later on. There's going to be quite dark hills back here. There's sort of a dark bluey green. And I've got the headland which is coming further forward a bit, and I'm going to give that sort of a green colour there, and for those trees up there, a bit of greenery. There's going to be some browns in here amongst the shrubbery. And in here, all over there. I'll put in also a few purples just to establish that, and there'll be some just the shadows going in. I'm also going to start putting in a bit of this river here, and it's very light. It's reflecting some of the sky colours. So there's some light colours coming in, but there's also some darker colours here, and some more sort of greeny browny colours coming in here for reflections. Deeper kind of colours in there. And some quite light colours around here. Okay, so that's laid in the basic colours. What I want to do is just put in some clouds there. There. I have my dish of isopropyl alcohol, a little soft brush, and we're just going to wash some of those colours in. Just move it around a little bit. And this just gives me some guidelines for later on, and establishes a bit of an underpainting here quite quickly. Get that one a little bit of if I don't want it, I just wipe it off with my finger. And there, coming up into trees again. Back into the water, give that a bit of a quick go there. And down into the You'll notice that I'm going nice and horizontally here. I'm in the water. I don't want to be going vertically because it just destroys the illusion of water. Water is flat. And then on the beach here, just locking in some of the ideas of the shadows there. Spreading that around a bit. Moving it around slightly. And I'll just go back into those clouds and move those around a little bit too. Okay, so now I've got something to work with. A bit of an underpainting, didn't take me very long, and I've got a very good idea of the light and the darks, the light areas, the shadowed areas, and the general scope of the painting. And I'll start. It dries very quickly, the isopropyl alcohol, so I'm quickly able to get back into putting pastel over the top of it. So I'm going to go back into the sky again now. With a hard pastel just to start with, and I'm going to take some of that colour and drop it into the waters here. And you can see as I scrape that across the top of my underpainting, I'm getting a very nice sort of sparkly effect there. And that's just to get me started with my sky. And I'll go back over that with some softer pastel to get all of that in. And when I go into it now with the softer pastel will help to fill in any of those gaps I want filled in and smooth it out somewhat. So we'll get in there with a bit of sky colour. Of different blues, a lighter blue as well there. Coming down and there'll be some sky colour coming up into here too, so we'll, in amongst the clouds we'll put that into. And you can see that the sky gets lighter and darker as we go up. And I don't want to lose the sparkle of it, but I just also want it to blend a bit there, so I'm just keeping going over it with the various colours till it blends in. And if I want it to blend it slightly more, I'll go back into it with my hard one. Just give it a bit of a go on with that. So I'm laying in the sky there. I need to pop in the clouds again and get them restated. Let's go back into my reference here again. So I'm just going to pop in the clouds there. Just going along the tops of them with the lighter colours from where the sun's coming down on them, because it's around about noon when I took this, so the sun's all straight overhead. And I'm just getting some of the forms of those clouds in. And I want to put in some more shadowy colours now. So I'm just going to go into some purpley sort of purples and blues in there as well along the base. It's fairly along the base there, and down here just behind the hills. It's also dark along the base of the clouds. In here. Very few of my pastels are full-length sticks. Here's one that's almost full length. Most of them are half or even quarter, because they're much easier to use if you can get the side of them against the paper. I just want to put some blues into that as well, not just, maybe not that blue though. Greeny sort of blue. Just gone over into my grey box there. You'll have seen me if you've watched any of my other videos, using the grey box for things like the cloud shadows. It's very, very useful. You don't need to buy a grey box, you can just buy a few greys and put in there, or sort out your own pastels into some greys, but it's very handy to have a grey box. So, clouds are coming along there. Further away from you, they're flatter, and you can't see as much at the bottoms. As they come closer, you see more at the bottoms. Occasionally with these clouds, I'm just going to give them a bit of a flick with my finger, as well as using the pastel itself to blend, just to get some soft shapes in there. Just going to blend a little bit across there. So I've got the bank of clouds there. I'm just going to pop in some of those lighter yellowy colours. White colours, not totally white, but just work around this a little bit. Put in stuff at the bottom of the base of those as well. So, there are my clouds and my skies done, and now I'm going to just work down here on this section, which background is bluer rather than green. So we'll just start out with this blue here. I'll go into that with some blues, just not covering all of that nice background I put in earlier. I washed in, because that'll help to give it some interest there. So in I go. Down towards the shore there, in behind those trees, just to give it a bit of colour behind there. So in goes that background, the distant hills. What I want to do is, as I get closer to the shore, there's some other colours in there that aren't the blues. It's sort of where there's rocks and so I'm just running a touch of sort of warm brown along the edge there, and I'll have the beach on the other side coming down to that, so just a bit of that warm brown there, running a little bit up into the hills to give it a bit of variety. We don't want it to be just plain blue there. We want some warm and cool colours, but they need to be dark because it's receding into the distance. And now I'm just going to put in reinstate the beach on the other side, and that's just going to be not a white, it's a creamy yellowy colour. I'm just going to start with that hard edged to get a nice and I want it flat where it meets the sea, but I want it to have little dips and dives where it goes up into the vegetation there. So there I've got the beach in on the far shore. That's looking quite good. And now what I want to do is put in the water. That's my very next thing. And it's a little bit darker as you go back. Again, you can, I've got a sheet of paper just above, I can just test out colours on. Above it I've got a little sheet of paper that I can test out colours on. Let's go back and keep looking at the painting. So now I'm going to put the water in. Very slightly dark right at the back there. And then it becomes lighter as I come forward, so I'll start using some of those turquoisey aqua colours. So at the back where it's dark, I'm just running a deeper turquoise across it, just in a light stroke across. Now I'm just going to go into a bit of the sand here, so we'll just find some sandy sort of colours. It's just going to be very pale sort of white, so a lovely little strip across there, and just go into that. Here we go, and goes in behind there, and then round this way, and then I'm just filling in all that, roughly all that area of sand, the sunlit, and some little bits in amongst the shadows. And just going to mix that up a little bit. Not very much of the yellow in there, the sand is more silvery white, but just a touch for some warmth. Pinky colours in amongst the sand. Pink. There's some sort of grey blues, light purples. Not too much of that because we want the warmth of the sand to play off against the shadows there. And we're seeing that come to life there now. I'm going to go back in with the original fairly white colour I put in just to reinforce the brightness of it, and just to blend it a little bit there. Some little jabby bits there amongst the shadows. So that's pretty much the sand. Now I want to do a little bit more work on the shrubbery. So clean off my hands because they're fairly light now, and I'm going back in with the darker colours now. So I want to go in with some darks here for the shrubs. Just mass in the bits there that you can't really tell what they are. They're just sort of some green shrubbery in the background. And then a lot of very linear marks here. Before I do that, actually, I'm going to go in with the shadows because these grasses are going to go across the top of the shadows. So we'll just start popping in some of those shadow colours. They're just sort of bluey purple colours, so I'm just going to make it a little bit of mix of blues and purples. It'll be quite blue where it comes into the water. Don't want that trunk to be quite so big, so I'm just going to take it out. You can see how easy it is to just modify those shapes as you go. Looks a bit like a cactus there, so that's coming out as well. But I probably will take that trunk all the way back there. Just make it a little bit so it holds shadow coming out of that corner there. That's looking good. Now some blues are going to go in there amongst that, because we don't want it all to be just one colour. And as it goes down into the water, it's quite blue, the shadows in the water. Blues and amongst that. So we're getting a little bit of colour into those shadows. Pink in amongst that as well. Just to give it a little bit of variety in the shadows. We don't want them all just to be purple and blue. Because some of it's reflected light from the colour of the shrubs and so on. So we have some interesting shadows there. I'm just going to put a couple of those colours from the shadows into the trees there, just to bring the shadows in there. Just jotting those in. A little bit of a different green in there. It's quite dark up in that little spot of shrubbery, so I'm just jabbing it on with little jabby motions there, just to and then I'm just going to pop in some more of the And at this point I can use some pencils, pastel pencils if I want to, because they're nice and sharp and it's quite good for the grasses. I'm putting in some sort of brighter colours, some oranges, and I'm putting some red colours, and I'm making some nice straight marks, but I'll also make some bent ones. Putting a little bit of red there. You can be a little bit adventurous with your colours in there. So these are just Derwent pastel pencils. You can get a nice sharp point on them, and so they're good for adding in those kind of colours there, but you do need to keep them sharp with some terracotta sort of colours, because those shrubberies, well in Tasmania anyway, on Bruny Island and other areas where you've got these reeds, they do have a lot of sort of burnt sienna and those kind of colours in them. Some of those are laying right over into the shadows there. Just flicking them around. That's starting to come along. I want it to be much darker in there, so we can go in with darker. Just putting in a few darker ones around the base there. And get right in there. A few coming out there that are in the shadows. And the ones at the back, which are not getting quite so much sunlight, will be more the darker ones. That's quite good. I do want to have some very light ones too that are catching the tip of the sun. So here I'm just putting in some quite light reeds. And that's fairly reed-like. I may even put in a lighter one later on. So now we've got the reeds here. I've got to have the little tree shrubbery bits coming here, and I'm working over here as well. I mustn't forget the headland there, which I've kind of blended out now and lost entirely, so I'll need to put that back in again. And I'm just going to go in with something a little bit dark to establish the edges of it there. Sort of a cliffy area, and then that's the trees up there. So I just want a dark green, olivey sort of green to come in there with the shrubs down there. These sort of gum trees there, so I'll make a little few so you can see a bit of sky holes along the top there. Where the sky is coming through, but down here, no sky. So we can see the suggestion of trees along the edge there. I need to put in something a little bit lighter where the sun is glinting off the rocks there. So on the cliffs there, as it just comes down into the water, just something a bit lighter amongst the darker colours. Going back in with the darker colours because it's quite dark up under the edge of the trees there where it's kind of in shadow. So we'll reinstate that dark there, and then sort of rocky along the edge there. Take that out and let's give it a bit of a smooth in there with my finger. I'm still not very happy with that, but I think it might be because I need to put something a little bit darker around the edges, and we will do that. I've actually got a box. I'm not sure if I've shown you this box before. It's a Sennelier pastel box, and they're darks, so very dark colours, which can sometimes be hard to get. And what I'm just going to do is pull out one of my dark brown colours here, and immediately you can see it's much darker than I've been able to get. So pull that down a little bit as it comes down, and along the waterfront there's some rocks there. Break it up a little bit. So there we go, a bit darker there, and I can go back into that with some touches of lighter colour to represent the sun shining on the rocks there. But I think it's entirely the wrong colour I've put there. I need to go and make it a little bit yellower. So I will do that with something with a bit of yellow ochre sort of colours in it. Because the rocks are more that colour. I made them a little bit too pink there. And then I just need to give it a little bit of shadow underneath the trees there. So I'm going in with a deeper green here, because it's a little bit darker as you come down to the edge of the rocks where the sun's not shining on them so much. So I'll just give them a little bit of little bit of colour in there to shape the form. And also what I want to do now is put in a touch of something lighter up there. So I've got a very light green, just for some hints of sunlight touching some of the trees there. And then instantly you have form. And you can see that the trees have got some shape and movement in them. Right. Kind of working our way down there, and it's coming along fairly well. I'm just going to smooth off the edge there where the water and the sand meet, because it tends to sort of, the tide comes up and you get smoother edges there along the water edge where some of the sand is wet. So just smoothing that off a little bit. I think it's coming along well, but I now have a little bit of work to do with the foliage coming in from the top here, and some more gum trees over here, and this bit of foliage there. So I'm coming in with a little bit of light sort of yellow creamy sort of colour there as that bank comes down, and there's some grasses there. So I need to put in the grasses with, I've just noticed I say so a lot. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to put in some wodges of colour for the grasses, some deep darks at the base of the grasses, and I'm just putting those in with any dark that comes to hand, because really when you're painting, it's more about the tone you're using, the value you're using. If it's supposed to be a dark colour, dark green, and you put in a light green, it's not going to look real. But if you were to put in a dark blue, it would look realer than putting in the light green. So it's more important to get the value, the strength of the colour, how dark or light it is, than it is to get the actual colour that you're seeing. And that will make it more real. So that's what we're doing here. I'm just putting in a few different colours there to simulate the grasses over in that area. And I'll just keep doing that. Some areas will be lighter, some will be darker, and actually there's more coming up behind there. And there's a tree up here coming out into the, so again I'm just doing those jabby bits to simulate the tops of the gum trees with some a little bit of the sky coming through there in patches. And don't want it to be too symmetrical, so I also need to put on the, I did it earlier, the little sunlight patches on there, so let's put in again some little areas of sun coming onto them to give it a bit of form. And also with gum trees, they have a bit of sort of orangey reds in them sometimes, so I'm just putting a few touches of that in. A few spots of it, and if I think I've gone overboard, I just go back and knock them out again with a bit more of that lighter green. And so there's a touch there. That's my trees. I'm still working on those grasses over here. I've got pretty well the shapes in, and there's some lighter green back there. Trees, shrubs, so I'm just going to pop in some lighter green for the shrubbery back here. And it has a few touches of sort of yellowy green on it as well. Maybe this one. Just on the tops of them, so a yellowy sort of green. But it's a darker green as you get down into the base of it, so we'll make it a bit darker down here. And just put a little... Your foliage doesn't have to be exactly right, it's just an approximation of foliage to give you an idea of it. I just need to go back in here because I've got a very smudgy sort of area, so I'm just going to put in some more overlaid trees there. And I'll just need to put in some branches. I'm just going to put in a few. Lines there, and down here too I'm going to have a few sort of dead branch, twiggy branch things coming up through there. I'm going to put in a couple of darker ones back here again. That's good. So now just a little bit more grass work over there, and I'll just be using a few. There's some sort of batch of lighter tops of grasses along this bit here. I don't need to put in as much detail as I've got over this side because they're further away. So just some highlights on the top of the branch of those grasses, and I'm using one of my little tiny chips of pastel. I save all those because they're great because they get really sharp edges on them and they're really useful for doing that kind of thing. I know that my grasses need a bit of, the bases of them need a little bit of darkening up around the edges for the shadows. I'm just putting in some deep green. I'm going to make that green back there a little bit deeper too. The great thing about vegetation is you can add in whatever you like for the values that you need to make your painting work for you. So I'm just putting in some darker bits there, going darker in the base of my grasses and in there. I'm going to put some deeper, darker, some really, just for a bit of a play off against all those greens. I'm putting in some orange colours, some more lighter colours there as well. Lighter greens as well. And I do have a very light, it's nice to sometimes have a very light edged to some of them for a real bit of, you can see that gives a really good contrast. So that's real sunshine coming down on those. I'm going to put a couple of those in there too. You don't want too many, but it does just give you that sense of the light really shining on that particular area. Okay, that's coming along really well. I'm not going to mess with the water here too much. I actually quite like that look. You have to remember with these kind of paintings, you're standing back, you're getting an impression of the area. I need to drop in those tree bits here, so I'm just going to, they're going to be quite dark because they're silhouetted against the sky. So again, it's just some sort of jabby motions here to make the leaves. There's some mass in the leaves at the top there, and they become a little bit more delicate as they come down. And I'll put in the branches after I put in the leaves to sort of connect, almost like connect the dots. And just the jabbing motion will give you that real leafy sensation. You can see that. And then there's some more coming out here. Give it a bit of body there as it comes towards the edge. That's quite good. And then this area down here, again, it's more filled in, and then there's just a few little edges of leaf with the sky and the hills behind it showing through. I'm just going to use the side of both pastel here, and then some branches coming down over the water there. Okay, there's a little shrub around here too. I'm just going to give it a little definition too. Some of the shrubbery behind the grasses. And again with that, I probably want to have a bit of light bits on the edges, just a couple of, not very much because it's actually fairly well in the shade, just a couple. In fact, I don't even think it needs that, so I'm just going to go back in with the, and maybe just put some variation, get the variation by using different darks in there. So I'm putting some purpley darks at the back there for the more shadowed areas. I'll put a few up there in the leaves up there as well. But also, I've got some a very purple here, which could give it a bit of nice variation. But it does actually give some shadows. So it's fairly well in shadow, so I'm using darks against darks to give it a bit of variety. I don't want it just to be a black silhouette, so just some, that area is going to be quite dark in there behind the, and I'm really putting in some darks down here now in the base of the grasses there, just to give them a little bit of definition and variety. So that's gone in. I don't like how it's sort of all lining up there, so I'm probably going to make that come over a bit further here. Make it come out a little bit further just to give it, I've picked up the wrong green, you can do that. Greens are quite difficult to work with. That's a bit better. Maybe I need to actually have that come out a little bit there, so it's not so straight down as well. And then a little gap in there. Yes, I like that better. And I can also use in amongst those some dark blues amongst the greens, just for a bit of variety. Throw a few of them in there. It just helps to connect everything if you use some of the colours all around the painting. I'm a bit happier with that. I might though go back in and put some more of those grasses coming up there now that I've got in the background. And the grasses are quite long and yeah, that's pretty good. So at this point, I'm just going to put in a couple of small branches up on the top. Just looking for my right coloured pencil. Here we go. Just a few little suggestions of branches coming down here. There we go. And I could keep playing around with that, but I'm probably going to mess it up if I do. My only thing here is the shadow is coming to here. This is the last thing I do when I'm looking at painting, just checking for things I haven't noticed. And I haven't noticed here that that shadow in the water comes to here, but there's no shadow matching it from the land, so I just need to put that shadow in there so it's actually coming down with it to meet the one in the water. That's a bit better. Doesn't look out of place now. So I've got the shadows in the water. I've got some variation here. There was a little bit of seaweed I was going to put in. Will I or won't I? Actually like it without the seaweed, so I don't think I'll bother. And I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to call it finished. And when I call it finished, I want to think about where I'm going to put my signature. I can hide it over in the shadows, but there's a lot happening here and not much there, so I'm just going to pop it right in here just to balance it out a bit. And I'm going to just use, I think I'm going to do it in purple, because that will pick up the other colours that I've used in the shadows, and I think that will work quite well. And when I sign, I either use a pastel pencil or a breaker Conte pastel, so I get a nice sharp edge. So here it goes, just in here. And can I suggest, if you haven't worked on a signature yet, work on a signature. It took me a long time to get one I was reasonably happy with, that I could do equally as well in pastel as I could in acrylic. So when you get your signature, just practice it on a piece of paper, but practice it with a sharp pencil, a sharp pastel, and if you're using acrylics as well, a fine brush, just so you know you can duplicate it. I'm pretty happy with that, and I'm going to call it done. Thanks for joining me in the studio today. I hope you enjoyed that small demonstration of painting a summer beach scene. See you next time. Bye for now.